Hi guys, and welcome to Manningford Trout Fishery. I'm up at Squires Lake today. This is a catch and release section of the estate, and today I'm going to ask the age-old question of does size matter? So without further ado, let's get into it. What do I mean by size matters? Very often when I come to these small fisheries, the small still waters and the large still waters for that matter, I often start with a big gaudy lure or certainly a size 10 or 12 fly, and as I find it more and more difficult to catch fish, I slowly but steadily grade down my tippet, my fly size, and eventually I get to a point where I do start to catch fish, or not, as the case may be. You know, it's fishing, it's not catching. Sometimes you go out and you just cannot get a bite for love nor money. But hopefully I'll be able to entice something to the net today. And how am I going to do that? So straight from the get-go, I'm going to fish really light. I've brought along my RS2 for a 5 weight, it's 9 foot, and I'm going to fish a dry fly on that. And the only dry flies I've brought with me are size 16 and size 14 shuttlecocks and some crippled midge. And I'm hoping that's going to be enough to entice these fish. I've had a walk around the lake and I've seen several fish cruising. They're only quite literally inches under the surface, and in the crystal clear waters here at Squires Lake you can spot them well off. And we've just got nice overcast conditions now, so I think the dry fly may work a treat. Well, as I approached the water, I kept well behind a tree and I could see a couple of fish just 2 or 3 feet off the bank, up sipping off the edges. I'll be honest, the first one I covered I missed completely in my excitement, but the next one I covered I've managed to catch. And as you can see, fishing a small CDC, I've managed to take a fish fairly quickly. So let's see if I can't get some more on the dries. It's brilliant fun. We've now got 100% cloud cover and the fish are really ready to come up and take off the top. Well, I've started off the dry fly fishing in a flurry and I've had a couple of fish already, 2 CDCs and crippled midge. Now I started off behind this log here, just keeping myself away from the edge of the water, and the fish were cruising only 2 or 3 feet off the bank and I could target them quite easily from behind this tree. But as I've moved forward slightly towards the pond's edge, the fish are starting to push further and further away from me. So what I want to achieve is good turnover on my fly line. Now, as the fish have pushed further out, I've obviously got to cast a lot further. And you can see there, I've got a big load of line, turnover wasn't great. Now, a way to achieve better turnover is get all this slack line back onto your reel as well as another couple of feet. And what will happen is when you cast and release the line for the final delivery, it will hit the back of the reel and your fly will shoot out forward, and that's very often when you'll get the takes. I've had an absolute ball with a dry fly rod. Playing the fish on a 5 weight's been great fun, and the dry fly's been the way to go this morning. Now, the small flies definitely made a difference. There's 4 or 5 anglers around this pond, and there's only a couple of guys catching. And when I've spoken to them, they've been using size 16 dry flies. The other guys that have persevered with the big lures and stuff haven't done so well. So going small from the get-go certainly paid dividends as far as dries go. Now what I want to do next is see how I get on with the indicator and the very small nymphs. But before that, I just want to mention a couple of bits and bobs about the dry fly fishing. Most of my success came just after I treated my leader with some mud and treated my dry fly with some floatant. It makes a difference. You can fish away, and I know it's distracting, you're seeing fish all the time, you're casting at them, and you're getting frustrated because you're not getting an offer, and it's because the fly's not being presented properly. Take the time to degrease your leader and apply floating when necessary to the fly, and I'm sure you'll catch more fish. The bung is often frowned upon by anglers as it's seen as float fishing, and actually sometimes the fish just want a fly presented at a certain depth absolutely static, and there is no better way of doing that than with an indicator or a bung. Often that is not the case though, and what we want to do is impart a little bit of movement into your fly. So once it's reached the required depth, a slow figure of 8 can often bring the fly up in the water, and as it descends back down, that's when the takes will come. Well, what an absolutely superb session. As I said, conditions have really favoured me today, and the dry fly has outfished the bung by a considerable margin. So I've had 2 fish to the net with the dries, several refusals, and absolutely zippo to the nymph. And the reason for that is the fish are quite literally 2 inches under the surface, and my nymph is sinking below their peripheral vision before it gets a chance to fish. I did get one offer, I struck, and my fly is now in one of Manningford's trees, just in time for Christmas. So, points to take away from it. I started really small and had instant success doing that. So when you start, don't always go for the big stuff. You might be pleasantly surprised by how well small flies will do. Now, a word of advice: make sure you degrease regularly and you treat your dry fly to keep it where it should be, on the surface or in the film of the water. Thanks very much for watching the video, and I'll see you all next time.